Marvel's Secret Invasion is absolutely amazing at treating insomnia.
The worst dialogue written for a Disney Plus show ever. It's a colossal disappointment.
Chris Gore from Film Threat there make me feel like when I watch this show, I'm going to be so bored and want to eat my own foot in the desperate hope that I can feel something again.
You can't say that. No, you can't say that.
And Chris is not alone in this opinion, because Secret Invasion is currently sitting at 66%, which may make you think, well, that's not too bad. But to put that into perspective for you, She-Hulk got 80. So whatever you thought about She-Hulk at the time, just know this is worse. And having to eat your own foot so you don't fall into a coma is sounding more reasonable by the second. Especially when it makes it the MCU's worst rated show on Rotten Tomatoes. My favourite part of this article is it says the early reviews rank it as the worst rated show, immediately followed up with Secret Invasion has received solid early feedback from critics. Yeah, that it was crap. Since when is this is one of those boring shows I've ever seen considered constructive criticism? Or is it just solid? Because someone was like, I was so bored I started to do all of my laundry, and you're like, well, at least it made him productive. We're improving the world. Because I'm not joking, we do get some titles. Like, Secret Invasion is off to a slow but solid start. Yes, we're once again into the territory of this is a slow burn, which just means boring. But that is also beautifully balanced out with reviews like the one from The Telegraph. Samuel L. Jackson seems as fed up with Marvel as the rest of us. 2 out of 5. After a raft of poor reviews, Marvel desperately needs the spin-off to be a hit, but with these shows and performances this poor, it's not likely. This show is awful, and Jackson knows it. We've even got the Hollywood Reporter that is desperate to get down on its knees and make it lovely. It starts off beautifully. Jackson's character has a long overdue return. When Disney suggested a Cold War drama with a backdrop of conquering lizard aliens, that got my pulse racing a little. The critic was there in the palm of your hand, his pulse racing. You couldn't get someone more on your side, and yet his very next sentence is, the series itself is a disappointment. This is like taking a bottle of water out into the desert, finding a guy crawling across the sand dunes, and then him going, oh, it's tap water. Because while some of the actors keep things generally watchable, Secret Invasion is more dour and even more dull than one might expect. I went into this expecting it to put me to sleep, but I at least thought I'd want to wake up again afterwards. And remember, this is from someone on their side. His pulse was racing, and he still expected it to be boring. And I kinda know the feeling, because Secret Invasion is almost custom designed as something I should like. Secret agents in the shadows, you can't trust anybody, twisty-turny plots, people backstabbing each other all over the place. That's right up my street. I think one of the BBC's best ever shows was Spooks. Went out with the slogan MI5 not 9 to 5. Secret agent stuff is always good, as long as you can nail the atmosphere, have good characters, and can actually write a good script. I think we found our problem, lads. In fact, one of this show's greatest strengths is that you never knew when one of the characters was gonna die. Because the major people got off on that show all the time, and so you had actual genuine tension. And what do we have in Secret Invasion? Well, we've confirmed the timeline for the episode, and it's basically present day. It comes after The Blip and She-Hulk, and She-Hulk has been confirmed to be in 2025. The issue is it takes place before the Marvels. So I guess everything's gonna be fine, because there he is. You made your show pointless before you even started. You've removed any tension from the show. Tension which I think would be hard to maintain anyway, given what's actually in the show to begin with, because we've got about 5 minutes of footage that they've shown us. That means they looked at the first 2 episodes and thought, these are the clips that will get people rushing through the door. So I bet they're good then.
Chaos. 5 global strikes within the past year.
No, that's what you get for 4 minutes in the first clip. It's just 2 guys in a room talking at each other, describing all of these better events that actually sound interesting, that I would have liked to have seen.
Argentina attacks Colombia. Colombia attacks the Philippines. Violent chain reaction consuming the globe.
That sounds awesome. Would have been nice to see it, wouldn't it? But instead, it's 2 men in a room talking because it's cheap. You could have rewritten this scene easily, so put him in an actual mission, so he's doing something as he's finding out things. That as he progresses through the mission, he discovers this information and then has to escape with it.
You think the same people are behind all of this?
Not people. Skrulls.
And if he dies, then no one gets warned about the Skrull invasion. It could have been an incredible opening in the vein of James Bond. But instead, if you just take images at random from the beginning, the middle, and the end of that 4 minutes, it all looks the same. Let alone the second clip, which is entirely different, because we don't have 2 men in it. Yes, it's an entirely different dynamic in this one. Really spices it up, because you got Samuel L. Jackson, who is the boss, facing off against his employee, his subordinate, who is just ranting at him about how awful he is.
You're not ready for this, Fury. There is no shame in walking away.
Yay, a scene where Nick Fury gets them removed and turned into a purse. That'll really get the audience on the edge of their seats. We've never seen that before. But look, maybe the show can be redeemed. I mean, it is based on comics that people really love as it is. The source material might be amazing. So yeah, maybe it messed up the first 2 episodes, but when it gets down to reflecting that source material, that's when it's really going to kick off into high gear. Oh, why Secret Invasion may shock hardcore Marvel comic fans. I was told on the first day, don't even bother reading them, because there's no point reading the comics if we're not going to be following them anyway. Why the MCU's Secret Invasion doesn't care about the comics.
Secret Invasion was a prolific comic book run that left readers shocked issue after issue.
What, and you thought the audience's hearts couldn't take it anymore, and if we put that onto TV, there's no way they can handle the pressure. We had to make it boring because we knew that your nerves wouldn't be able to handle it in live action. Maybe it's like the Eternals, and this show is actually life-saving.
Make a story that talked more about the nuances.
We didn't use the source material because it's too basic. Good guy, bad guy. We can tell a more nuanced story. We can meddle around in the grey.
And less about just bad guy, good guy. Because it's a more nuanced story of Nick Fury.
Who needs morality, folks, when you've got Hollywood who don't have any morals? Everything's grey in Hollywood. Yes, maybe one of the major problems with Secret Invasion is that it's an adaptation of one of the most fan-beloved comic events, and yet the people making it think it's not even good enough to use, because it's just so basic about good and evil.
Comic books are great, but we weren't anchored to them.
We weren't anchored to them. We didn't need them, because ours is far more complex. They're just so simple.
Where psychopaths come from, those things are more complex from good guy, bad guy.
Yes, you could stay over there with your funny little drawings, whereas I'm an artist. I transcend your little cartoony things. They're just so two-dimensional. And you're on a planet with superheroes, but we better just leave this to Nick Fury. Don't get any of them involved. That'd increase the budget. But maybe despite all this, you still want to give it a go. You want to catch up so that you are ready and prepared for this series. So let's see what Marvel thinks are the movies that you have to watch before Secret Invasion. No backup, just Fury. We start off with Iron Man, a guy who's not in this series and the entire film is unrelated to this series. Not the best start for the list, really, is it? The only reason to watch this seems to be because it's got Fury in it. I'm assuming it's the same for Iron Man 2. Then we've got the Avengers, who just have a load of characters who aren't in this one because they've got superpowers. In fact, the entire thing just seems to be a list of movies that have Fury in it, despite the fact that none of them are related to the series, except for talking about the Blip and, obviously, Captain Marvel. I do appreciate Marvel's enthusiasm that last on the list, and therefore most recent in your memory, will be Captain Marvel. All about Fury and the Skrulls, and they think that watching that movie will make you want to go on and watch Secret Invasion. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but the complete lack of self-awareness that it takes to recommend Captain Marvel as a gateway into this series, I find it almost endearing. Because look, I know in the early clips they tried to set up what it was. Oh, this is really dark and dangerous. But when you get down to it, what the plot is that Fury has been gone for a long time, and the Skrulls are essentially a clingy ex. Oh, but you said you'd be back at 6, and now it's 9, so I've started causing trouble. It's going to make it really difficult for Fury, because he's got to stop him, when really, he probably just wants to ghost him and never talk to him again. But look, maybe there are some good parts in the series. I mean, The Hollywood Reporter was hooked for maybe the first 15 minutes. Why was it hooked? Well, I mean, they had conversations about clocks, arched doorways, evocatively lit pursuits. Don't you even know there was a child with a ball? Look, all I'm saying is that there are some people who are incredibly easily pleased if conversations about clocks and arched doorways had him hooked. And remember, he still didn't like it. This is a guy who's entertained by doorways, and he found it a disappointment. Because the action peaks in Secret Invasion's first scene, and after that, the series is all talk. With repetitive exposition and forced quippiness, the plot is both familiar and predictable, and that even the access media, when it comes to Disney plus Marvel shows, have found themselves liking them less and less. Maybe it's because the most inspired that Marvel are is to cast Katie Finneran as a scientist with no characterization, because we need more women in STEM. But hey, maybe an expert can help us. The director Salem himself, who says that he's always loved the espionage drama, and obviously people need to know what the Blip is, because yeeting half of the universe out of existence is a pretty big deal. But it doesn't seem like they care much about that aspect of it. No, instead, they want to focus on Nick Fury and the disorientation and isolation that caused him. Because honestly, it's not that different to Lockdown. Hollywood really can't help themselves, can they? Yes, I may be directing television shows about superheroes, but I just want to be taken seriously. I have so much to say about the world. But you know, it was important that we know what the Blip is, because my wife doesn't know what the Blip is, and she was very confused by the first episode. And I mean, I don't think it says much to go, the Blip is where we yeeted half the universe out of existence and then brought them back. But I also think if you don't know what the Blip is, how likely are you to watch this series if you're not the director's wife? Because this is a show which is going to sit in some very weird places. Being the worst rated show, it comes behind Moon Knight at 86, Loki at 92, WandaVision 91, and Miss Marvel of all things at 98. Even some of the worst Marvel shows got incredibly highly rated, and yet this one bombed. Because even the critics are finding themselves liking them less and less. And Marvel's own products have so little to do with each other now. Yes, they're all in the same universe, but they tie in together so poorly. They just put out a list of movies that have absolutely nothing to do with this series at all. And yet, despite all their intentions, the first 2 episodes that the reviewers have seen ranges from murky and hard to follow to dull and hard to follow. And worse yet, it looks cheap. Probably because it was. Let's face it, the reason you don't want superheroes is because of cost, as they definitely would have improved the series. Now, much of the story occurs in Moscow, where they couldn't shoot, and so the Russian capital has been replaced by Halifax and Leeds.
With this Rocher already spoiling us.
Jackson used to bring raffish pizzazz to even his darker parts, but here he seems as fed up with the Marvel formula as a growing segment of the audience, and the rest of the cast aren't any cheerier. Emilia Clarke looks as gloomy as in the later seasons of Game of Thrones, radiating will this do energy, and Olivia Colman turns up as a heightened version of Sophie from Peep Show before disappearing again, which, if you've never seen it, highly recommend. No, Marvel is simply the studio that has forgotten how to win. But I don't think they've forgotten. I think they were destroyed. You're only as good as the people in your company, and if your hiring policies are that you don't want to focus on talent and results as the reason why you give people a job, then is it any surprise when your employees are lacking in that department? No, unlike The Direct, I don't think a show off to a slow start is a positive. And this show was announced in 2019. 4 years later it's here because of substantial delays and reshoots. Always a good sign for entertainment, that is. I mean, we do have The Flash that was supposed to come out in 2018, had multiple delays and reshoots, and look how that turned out. Clearly, we've got nothing to worry about here. Although Samuel L. Jackson probably can't compete with
the Mad Goose Wizard. It's me.
And the thing is, all the reviewers were offered the first 2 episodes out of 6 in advance. And you're like, well, that's a bit weird. Maybe you're trying to control for spoilers, but you end up with things like this, where, yeah, you've got a number, but no one reads the reviews. They're not marked down, presumably because they're not considered final reviews, as they haven't seen the entire series yet. So how can they give final reviews? But I can't help wondering if it's to give people a bit of an out. To say things like, well, the overall verdict, it's a solid start, because even the direct agree with the main problem. It's slow, but it allows them to go, yes, it's slow, yes, it has problems, but it's just beginning. This is something that any gamer will be familiar with. Oh, don't worry, it's just a beta. It's like, yes, but the main game rolls around and nothing's changed. It's a beta was just an excuse to give people time to lead up to the series, so they bought the game and then they've got your money anyway. And if they'd shown all of them, we wouldn't be able to use that excuse. But don't you understand? Yes, it's slow, but this more casual pace, they mean boring, is entirely intentional. It's boring deliberately. I wonder where I've heard that before. Oh yeah, The Flash. The CGI was crap, but we intended it to be that way. That just makes it all better. We're deliberately bad at our jobs. So fans shouldn't go in expecting entertainment, because this project doesn't even have the same buzz potential as WandaVision. I'm pretty sure they meant that as a compliment, although it really doesn't come across as one. And half of this review is just solid. It's a solid start. A solid start. Solid performances. A solid start. It's solid enough. This is one of the good reviews. They even say that it's a character-driven approach that doesn't have a unique voice or feel, and that's often the saving grace of slower-paced stories. So in other words, this show has no saving grace. They're like, yes, it's slow, but it doesn't have any of the things that would save a slow-paced show. This is one of the good reviews. Kind of makes the Telegraph's review seem a lot less savage, doesn't it? If these are your friends, who needs enemies? They even say it's hard to imagine that non-Marvel fans will go out of their way to watch this. So I think with all this, we know what we're gonna get. It's safe to assume that continuing the franchise's dull slate is an accurate description, because their positive reviews all have the standard red flags. The get out of jail free card, I've only seen 2 episodes. I just thought it went downhill in the other 4, but you can still call it dark and gripping in your review. And it's a shame, because of all the series that were coming out, this is the one I wanted to like. This is the one I should have liked. It's got everything in it that appeals to me. And it seems like a lot of other people too, because even the trailer itself had 436,000 upvotes to 23,000 downvotes. This wasn't something that was obviously a fail before it even started. This wasn't something where you looked at the trailers and thought, well, that hates me. But as the director opens his mouth, there's a couple of cheeky red flags slip in. And as they released that 5 minutes of footage, I wanted to like it, but there were just too many signs that the writing was on the wall. And as the reviews have come in, they've confirmed my suspicions that despite the fact that the universe and the situation gave the opportunity for it to be good, Marvel simply doesn't have the talent to pull it off anymore. And I can't say I'm surprised, because it's always the same when writers think they're too good for the source material. Because it doesn't matter if you don't like something, if you can't comprehend that a load of people really enjoying the source material is reason enough to respect it and to replicate it authentically, then you lack the ability to do any good work yourself. Because if you're that arrogant, that self-obsessed, that you don't even care what the fans want, then you'll never be able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, to think of ideas that are greater than you. Because if you can't understand that one of the most fan-beloved comic events is greater than you, then you obviously think you're the center of the universe, and you'll write that into all of your shows and ruin them, because you fail to understand that from the fans' perspective, you're irrelevant. And without the source material, so's your show. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe for more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.